Dayam,
Dayam,
mercy.
mercy.
Kuruta,
Kuruta,
show.
show.
Sauhridam,
Sauhridam,
friendliness.
friendliness.
Bhavam,
Bhavam,
the attitude.
the attitude.
Asuram,
Asuram,
of the demons,
of the demons,
who separate friends and enemies.
who separate friends and enemies.
Unmucha,
Unmucha,
giving up.
giving up.
Yaya,
Yaya,
by which.
by which.
Tushyati,
Tushyati,
is satisfied.
is satisfied.
Adhoksaja,
Adhoksaja,
the Supreme Lord,
the Supreme Lord,
who is beyond the perception of the senses.
who is beyond the perception of the senses.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Therefore, my dear young friends born of demons, please act in such a way that the Supreme Lord, who is beyond the conception of material knowledge, will be satisfied. Give up your demoniac nature and act without enmity or duality. Show mercy to all living entities by enlightening them in devotional service, thus becoming their well-wishers. Purport. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 18:55, Bhaktyamama vijaranti yavan yaschashmi tattvataha. One can understand the Supreme Personality as He is only by devotional service. Prahlad Maharaj ultimately instructed his class friends, the sons of the demons, to accept the process of devotional service by preaching the science of Krishna consciousness to everyone. Preaching is the best service to the Lord. The Lord will immediately be extremely satisfied with one who engages in this service of preaching Krishna consciousness. And this is confirmed by the Lord Himself in Bhagavad Gita 18:69. Na chattasman manushyeshu kaschin me priyakritamaha. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. If one sincerely tries his best to spread Krishna consciousness by preaching the glories of the Lord and His supremacy, even if he is imperfectly educated, he becomes the dearmost servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is bhakti. As one performs this service for humanity without discrimination between friends and enemies, the Lord becomes satisfied and the mission of one's life is fulfilled. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore advised everyone to become a guru devotee and preach Krishna consciousness. Yari deka, tare kaha, Krishna upadesh. That is the easiest way to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By such preaching, the preacher becomes satisfied, and those to whom he preaches are also satisfied. This is the process of bringing peace and tranquility to the entire world. Bhoktaram jageta pasham sarva loka maheshwaram suhridam sarva bhutanam yatva mam shanti murichiti. One is expected to understand these three formulas of knowledge concerning the Supreme Lord: that He is the supreme enjoyer, that He is the proprietor of everything, and that He is the best well-wisher and friend of everyone. A preacher should personally understand these truths and preach them to everyone. Then there will be peace and tranquility all over the world. The word Sauhridam, friendliness, is very significant in this verse. People are generally ignorant of Krishna consciousness, and therefore to become their best well-wisher, one should teach them about Krishna consciousness without discrimination. Since the Supreme Lord Vishnu is situated in the core of everyone's heart, every body is a temple of Vishnu. One should not misuse this understanding as an excuse for such words as Daridra Narayana. If Narayana lives in the house of a Daridra, a poor man. This does not mean that Narayana becomes poor. He lives everywhere, in the houses of the poor and those of the rich, but in all circumstances he remains Narayana. To think that he becomes either poor or rich is a material calculation. He is always Sad Aishwarya Purna, full in 6 opulences, in all circumstances. Tasmat sarveshu bhuteshu dayam kurutta sauhridam bhavam asuram unmuchya yasya tushyatyar hokshaja. Therefore, my dear young friends born of demons, please act in such a way that the Supreme Lord, who is beyond the conception of material knowledge, will be satisfied. Give up your demoniac nature and act without enmity or duality. Show mercy to all living entities by enlightening them in devotional service and thus becoming their well-wishers. Mukam krodivachanam bhangam anayate garemya kripataraham vande Sri Gurum dinatadanam. Yes. So Prahlad Maharaj is saying that to act in such a way that the Lord is satisfied means to show mercy to all living entities by enlightening them in devotional service and thus becoming the well-wisher of all living beings, no matter what their relative material position may be. Some living entities are in a high position, others in a low position. Some are considered good, some are considered evil. Just like this universe is divided into categories of Daiva or Deva and Asura. That is the statement of the Vedic scriptures that all living entities throughout the universe may be classified in terms of pious, good, such as the demigods, or impious, evil, such as the demons. But actually, one who is a servant of Lord Adhoksaja, this is the name that Sri Prahlad Maharaj uses, name of the Supreme Lord, Adhoksaja. So this name Adhoksaja is very significant because it means that Krishna is not subject to our material calculation. Just as we're talking about these 2 classes of living entities in this universe. That is according to material calculation. But Lord Adhoksaja, Adho Aksaja, Aksha means the eyes, Adho, well, let's explain it this way. Adho means eyes, Ja means born from. So Aksaja refers to knowledge or understanding which is born from material perception, such as our calculation of the position of other living entities, whether they're good or bad, high or low, whatever. So Adho Aksaja, Adho Aksaja means he who pushes this knowledge down, you see, or he who is above that. We cannot calculate Krishna's position by aksaja, by knowledge born of these material eyes, of material vision, material understanding. Just like the Lord, when he appears in this universe, in his first avatar, he enters this universe, first of all, as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. And he dwells on the Garbhodak ocean. So, Lord Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, he is the source of Brahma. The lotus grows from his navel and opens, and there is Brahma. Brahma is the first of the demigods. But also, this same Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, who is the Lord of Brahma, when the demigods are in trouble, and then they go with Brahma to Sveta Dvip, and Brahma meditates upon his Lord, and the Lord appears in one avatar or another to save the demigods. This is happening again and again. The same Gauradakashai Vishnu is laying upon Anantashesh. And Anantashesh, of course, he's a naga, he's a snake, a serpent. Now by material calculation, the serpents are demoniac. They live in the lower regions, and they're considered to be very, very envious. So here we see, this is the form of the Supreme Lord. You see, he's on the one side is Vishnu. He's called Deva Deva, the god of the devas, the god of the demigods. But as Anantashesh, he is the first among the serpents who are considered demoniac. So what is his position? Is he demigod? Is he demon? He's neither. He's Adhokshaja. He's transcendental. And similarly, so is the spirit soul, who is his eternal part and parcel. The spirit soul appears in bodies that may be calculated as good or bad, high or low. But the spirit soul himself is actually also Adhokshaja, is also beyond such calculation. And the business of the spirit soul is to satisfy the Supreme Soul. So Sri Prahlad Maharaj is explaining how this is to be done, that we have to, in order to please Lord Adhokshaja, we have to throw off our material calculation and simply become the well-wisher of all living entities by giving them Krishna consciousness, regardless of their apparent position as being pious or impious. In Lord Chaitanya's movement, Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, we see that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda, they were not discriminating. They were not thinking, oh, here is someone who is pious, he deserves Krishna consciousness. Here's someone else who is impious, that person shouldn't be given the opportunity to chant Hare Krishna. No. They're not discriminating at all. As a matter of fact, Srila Haridas Thakur, he was astonished at the liberal behavior of Lord Nityananda, because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had sent Nityananda and Haridas Thakur on the very first door-to-door Sankirtan party. Before, Sankirtan had been kept indoors in the house of Srivas Thakur. But as the ecstasy of Sankirtan increased and increased behind the doors of Srivasanga, one day Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he decided, now is the time. Now is the time that this nectar of the holy name must be taken to every door of every house in Navadvip. So he appointed Sri Nityananda Prabhu and Srila Haridas Thakur to take up this work, this missionary work. So Haridas Thakur, he was astonished at Sri Nityananda Prabhu's liberality, that Lord Nityananda even approached two very, very dangerous characters, Jagai and Madhava, who were fallen Brahmanas. Because they were Brahmanas, and at that time, 500 years ago in India, Varnashram Dharma society was still very strong. So the feeling of the people, you might say even their superstition, was that someone born in Brahmana family may not be checked, no matter what he does. if we try to check him, if we try to punish him, then it is very bad for us. So Jagai and Madai were acting in a completely unrestrained way. It is said that they committed every sin that it was possible to commit. And no one dared say a thing. And besides that, they were very powerful. Actually, they are Jagai and Madai. Jai and Vijay. Jai and Vijay in Chaitanya Lila. Jai and Vijay, who had come as Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, and Ravana and Kumbhakarna, and Kamsa and Shishupal and Dantavaka. These in the pastimes of Nrsingadev, Ramchandra, and Lord Krishna previously. So now in Chaitanya Lila, Jai and Vijay appeared a fourth time, just to participate in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes and to receive his unlimited mercy. Although they didn't have to. They were not cursed in that way to come 4 times, but they decided to come a 4th time. Because in the pastimes of Lord Gauranga, as we hear in that prayer, Namo Mahavadanyaya, Krishna Prema Pradayate, there is no avatar more merciful than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he is so freely giving Krishna Prema, love of Krishna. So they wanted to give this Krishna Prema. So they came again as Jagai and Madai. And so they were very, very powerful. Everyone was afraid of them. So in Navadvip one day they were fighting. This was their loving exchange between the 2 brothers. They would get drunk and they would fight and pound each other in the face. So when they would do this, then a great crowd would gather. And so Lord Nityananda was passing by with Haridas Thakur, and he saw this great crowd of people, and from within the crowd a big cloud of dust was being kicked up, and there was much shouting and screaming. So, being curious, Lord Nityananda made his way through the crowd and saw these 2 brothers, and he asked someone, "Who are they?" And that person explained to Lord Nityananda the identity and reputation of these 2. That person intended to warn Lord Nityananda that they're very dangerous. Stay away from them. And Lord Nityananda, he thought, oh, they're so fallen, they're so sinful, then they should receive more than anyone else, they should receive the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was thinking that if these 2 can be delivered, then this will actually demonstrate the power of the chanting of the holy name, the power of the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he boldly stepped up and asked the 2 brothers, Bhaja Krishna, Bolo Krishna, Kari Krishna, Shiksha. This was the mission that had been given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that you go door to door and ask everyone to worship Krishna, to chant the holy name of Krishna, and to become educated in Krishna conscious philosophy. In other words, to read the books, to hear Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. So, he requested these 2 brothers to do the same. And they became angry. And they wanted to kill Lord Nityananda and Haridas Thakur. So, you know this. We don't have to relate the whole pastime. Again, you know it well. But here we see very clearly what is the mission of the Lord, or what activity is most satisfying to the Lord, and we see how to execute this mission of the Lord. One has to give up this material calculation. One has to give up raga, dvesha, attachment to a particular group, a particular class of designation. Upadhi. Upadhi means material designation. So we are in this world attached, just like the national designation. If one is under the designation, the upadhi of being Swedish, then by nature, that means by material nature, he thinks Swedish people are my people, Swedish culture, language, that is my culture. He feels at home there, in his land, among his people. And then that's raga, attachment. And then there's dvesha. Dvesha means enviousness. Just like now the Swedish people are worried about so many Russians coming, people from the eastern region, that they want to come here and make money, take away our jobs. So they're fearful of them. So that's called dvesha, enviousness. So Srila Prabhupada explained that this is, because this verse, raga dvesha vimuktastu, it comes from Bhagavad Gita. This is actually the whole point of Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada explained. That Arjuna was unwilling to fight, to execute the Lord's order, because of this. As Prabhupada said, because of attachment to his own men. He was thinking, as he viewed the opposite side, that this is my family, these are my friends, there is even my teacher, my guru, Drona, there is grandfather Bhishma, he's a great soul. How can I fight? How can I do this? So, Srila Prabhupada said that by material calculation, Arjuna's concern for his relatives on the other side, the Kauravas, is very laudable, very praiseworthy from material calculation. Actually, materialistic people, they can't understand what is the problem that Lord Krishna is addressing in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. They think Arjuna's arguments are just fine. They make perfect sense. One man, one professor I met many years ago, he told me that Bhagavad Gita, in his opinion, was a kind of barbaric text because it seems to go against civilized values, the values of civilization. Why is it, he couldn't understand, why is it that Krishna was insisting that Arjuna take up a weapon and kill his own relatives? But the point, as Srila Prabhupada explained, is that to maintain attachments on the base of the body, on the basis of the material body, material relationships, this is our bondage. This is the cause of our rotating life after life in the cycle of birth and death. So to get free of birth and death means to get free of this attachment to one kind of body, one type of designation, and also simultaneously to get free of enviousness of another type. So when one does this, then the Lord becomes very satisfied. That's the whole point of Bhagavad Gita. And that is also the whole point of Lord Chaitanya's mission. It is stated that when the Panchatattva, Tari, Deki, Pancha Janera, Prema Ulasa, when Sri Panchatattvas saw their mission spreading through the whole world, the whole universe, then they became Prema ulasa means they became most satisfied. And what is that mission? Jagat Duvila. Jagat Duvila means to flood the whole universe. The whole universe, from top to bottom, whether the regions of the demigods or the demons, the whole universe, Jagat Duvila, should be flooded with the nectar of love of God, with this preaching. And moreover, it is stated that Jivera Haila Bija Nasha. This is a wonderful point. That when the jiva, when the living entity engages in this mission of flooding the universe with the holy name of the Lord, Nam Sankirtan movement, then Jivera Haila Bija Nasha, the Bija, the seed of material life, material existence, material desire is extinguished, is uprooted from the heart. Otherwise, there is no way to actually uproot material desire from the heart. There are many mystics who try by other means, by jnana, by yoga. What they're capable of doing is temporarily stopping the senses. They can temporarily restrain the senses for some time from material activities. But ultimately they are impelled from deep within the heart to once more engage in sense gratification. It's irresistible because that bija, that seed, remains. So here is the secret for uprooting that seed. One has to give oneself to the mission of the Lord to spread His glories through the whole universe without discrimination. The demons, those who are materialistic, they want to devour the whole universe, swallow it, eat it up. This is their outlook. Their outlook is that this universe is here for me to enjoy. So when we enjoy something, we taste it. You see, that word taste is symbolic of all types of sense gratification. In all sense gratification, whether it's the gratification of the tongue or the eyes or the ears or any other sense, that word taste is used. So the demons try to taste or devour this universe in two ways, again according to this raga dvesha. On the one side, they're tasting so-called loving relationships, intimate relationships with their family and friends and allies. On the other side, they want to eat up their enemies. This is the business of the demons. Just like Kumbhakarna. Kumbhakarna, he was a brother of Ravana. Very tremendous and dangerous demon who used to eat up his enemies. During the Lanka war, it is described he was devouring many hundreds of thousands of monkeys in one go. He could expand his mouth so huge. Because they're loved ones. And what is the main business? Eating. Sitting down at the table and eating and looking at one another. Looking at each other eating and talking, exchanging some joking words. This is the pleasure of material life. So this tasting This is predominant. This Kumbhakarna, his business at home was eating and sleeping. He had practiced austerities together with his brother Rava, also his sister Supurnaka, for a long, long time. And Lord Brahma appeared and gave each of this demoniac family benedictions. So when Brahma came to Kumbhakarna to award him, he asked, "What do you want?" And Kumbhakarna intended to reply, "Nityatvam." Nityatvam means, I want to be eternal. Give me eternality. But Brahma's consort, Saraswati, who is the goddess of speech, Vach, she caused Kumbhakarna's tongue to fumble. And instead of Nityatvam, he said Nidratvam. I want to sleep forever. So Brahma said, very well. But Kumbhakarna objected, wait a minute, this was a trick. What is the use of this? I performed all these austerities for so long, and now my reward will be that I'll just sleep? What nonsense is this? So then Brahma, he revised his benediction, that all right, for 6 months out of a year you will sleep, and for the other 6 months you will eat. So Kumbhakarna was quite satisfied then. Because this is what demons like to do. So he used to sleep for 6 months. Of course he was not inactive. He would leave his body, his gross body, with his subtle body. And he would do things and that. He went to Kailash and pleased Lord Shiva in his subtle body and received from him all kinds of weapons. So he was active even while sleeping. And then after 6 months, his family members, the Rakshasas, they would gather around him and beat on gongs and blow bugles and march elephants up and down his chest. And they would shake him and poke him and beat him. And then finally they would light a fire on his chest. And then he would gradually start to feel something. And then he would sit up. They would have brought before him also all kinds of foodstuffs. Big trays of raw lumps of flesh. And this was also to attract him out of his sleep, to the smell. So when he sat up, he saw all this foodstuff and he began to eat. Non-stop for 6 months. And this is the main business of demons. Eating, either eating with friends or eating up their enemies, and then sleeping. And then after, of course, as Prabhupada explains, after eating and sleeping, then the sex desire is agitated. So then one becomes very interested in that. So, ahara, nidra, maituna. Maituna means sex. And then, after having formed sexual relationships, and from these relationships, of course, offspring are coming. So then one becomes fearful. Bhaya, fear follows that. Because now one is very attached. And he becomes afraid that these attachments will be taken away. So this is how one becomes entangled in material life. This is the sum and substance of material existence. Eating, sleeping, mating, fearing or defense. So how to overcome this. Because this is all arising from this seed, this bija in the heart. This seed of material desire. Actually, this body that we have has grown up from that seed. Isn't it? What is this body anyway? It is a place of eating, sleeping, sex, and self-defense. That's why we have material bodies, so that we can do these things. So just when we consider this, we see how hard it is, how it practically is, to many, many people, it is inconceivable. Just inconceivable. How is it possible to curb down these four activities? After all, that's why we have this body. They cannot imagine how it can be done. But it can be done. We hear in the prayers, that song, prayers to the six Goswamis, Nidrahara, Vihara Kadi Vijitu, that the six Goswamis in Vrindavan, they were so much engaged in Krishna's service that they had hardly any time left over for eating and sleeping. Not that they were oppressed, you see, so overworked. They couldn't eat and sleep unless they were suffering. Not like that. They had no interest in that. They only ate and slept enough just to maintain the body. Srila Prabhupada said they might sleep for 45 minutes in 24 hours. And they might eat just a little palmful of buttermilk. That would be their meal for the day. And sometimes even that was not possible, probably. Sometimes they were so busy in Krishna's service that was not possible. So what was their engagement? The engagement of the six Goswamis is, of course, executing the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We have that prayer, Sri Chaitanya Mano Bishtam Shtapitam Jena Putale Svayam Rupa Kadavadya. So this is a very nice prayer. First line is Sri Chaitanya Mano Bishtam. The Lord Chaitanya had something in his mind. He had an idea in his mind. His mission was this idea. He had an idea for benefiting the whole world. Sri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Shtapitam Jena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamadyam. And it was Srila Rupa Goswami, especially Rupa Goswami is mentioned because of the six Goswamis, he is the foremost. But when Rupa is mentioned, then the other five Goswamis are also included. So we can also take it to mean all the six Goswamis. So it was Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami and Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Jiva Goswami, who brought forth the realization of Lord Chaitanya's idea on Jena Bhutali. They established on the earth the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, in doing this, the six Goswamis were completely engaged. Their mission was fourfold. They, just like that prayer says, Nana Shastra Vikaranai Saddharma Samstapako, to establish eternal religious principles, to establish the Vaishnava Dharma for the benefit of all beings. They were investigating all the revealed scriptures, all the Vedic texts, thousands and thousands of texts. They were pouring through them and extracting from them the essential statements purpose of this human form. What are we to do with this human form of life? That the six Goswamis answered fully, completely. Especially in such works as Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar of Devotion, Hari Bhakti Vilas. Here we find very clearly what is the human mission. And secondly, the six Goswamis of Vrindavan, they established the principles of devotional service. They established the means, the practical means by which even we who are so fallen in this age of Kali may attain love of God. Thirdly, they established temples. As when you go to the holy city of Vrindavan, you will see the temples established by the Goswamis. Madan Mohan Temple, Radha Damodar Temple, Radha Govinda Temple. So by establishing temples and deity worship, the populace, the common people, have the opportunity to actually see the Lord, see the Supreme Lord, despite our having these impure senses, material senses, which cover our spiritual vision. By the grace of the six Goswamis of Vrindavan, in these temples one can actually see Krishna and serve him. And finally, fourthly, the six Goswamis of Vrindavan excavated the sites of Lord Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan Dham. For instance, Sri Radhakund, Shamakund, just like here in Sweden. We have new Radhakund, new Shamakund. So Radhakund and Shamakund, they were discovered by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, but these holy places were developed and made famous by the six Goswamis, as were many, many other holy places in Vrindavan. So this is the fourfold mission of the six Goswamis in Vrindavan. This mission is intended to benefit the whole universe. In that prayer, Dhira Dhira Jana Priyo Priyakaro. The six Goswamis were dear to everyone because in executing their mission they made no discrimination. Dhira Adhira. Dhira means someone who is self-controlled. Civilized person is expected to be self-controlled, not to behave like a cat or a dog. And adhira means one who is not restrained, one who is easily overwhelmed by the impulses of the senses and easily engages in forbidden activity. So dhira, they are considered to be high class, respectable, and adhira are low class, irresponsible. But the six Goswamis, dhira, adhira, they were dear to both. They showed mercy to both sides. They were not on the side of one and against the other. Everybody loved them. Everybody respected them. So, this fourfold mission continues to expand through the world in the form of this International Society for Krishna Consciousness. ISKCON is carrying on this work of producing and distributing the Vedic literatures, of establishing the example of genuine spiritual life, or we should even just say establishing the example of genuine human life in this age. Because unless one is following these principles that are followed within this movement, there's no question of human life, what to speak of spiritual life. And this Krishna consciousness movement is furthermore opening temples, just as we said, There's the old Radhakund, now here there's the new Radhakund, the old Brahmakund, the new. So these temples, places of worship of the deity, continue under the order of Srila Prabhupada to be opened all around the world. And the holy places of the Lord's pastimes continue to be revealed, both in India and also now in the West, pastimes of Srila Prabhupada, for instance, in New York City. Now, Tirtha at 26 Second Avenue, the site of the matchless gift shop. ISKCON has established that place as a Tirtha, a holy place of Srila Prabhupada's pastimes. So, these activities are meant for the benefit of everyone. High class, low class, good or bad, controlled, uncontrolled, respectable, not respectable. And seeing this endeavor, the Lord is satisfied. The Lord becomes pleased when He sees His servants pushing on this mission. And being pleased with them, then the Lord, He blesses them by uprooting this bija, this karma bija from within the heart. This is actually how it is done. It is by this karma bija that we are viewing the world as the demons do, more or less. More or less everybody who's afflicted by this karma bija in the heart, more or less he's a demon. And Srila Prabhupada said regarding Kumbhakarna, he said, if you like to sleep, then you're Kumbhakarna. If you like to sleep more than necessary. In other words, one who takes pleasure in sleeping. Not that we artificially try to avoid not sleep at all. That is also not recommended in Bhagavad Gita. One should not sleep too little. That will just make us unable to serve Krishna. But also if we sleep too much, that will similarly make us unable to serve Krishna. So the body must sleep. So it must be given sleep, just like you park your car when you're not using it. Give it a rest. So the body must be taken care of. But one who takes pleasure in sleep, and one who thinks, like Prabhupada said, they think that when they're sleeping, they're gaining something. They think it's time well spent. Like the karmis, they work 5 days a week, and then they get 2 days off. And then for these 2 days, they sleep long hours because they think, I'm gaining something. This is happiness. So that means Kumbhakarna. It's Kumbhakarna. So yeah, because of this karma bija in the heart, therefore we like these activities, eating, sleeping, mating, defending. In this way, we try to swallow up the world. We're just this body is like a big tongue, just tasting everything. Tasting in pleasure, in happiness, or tasting in anger, in hatred. Tasting, biting, swallowing. Why it is said, Sevanmukhi Jivva Do, service to Krishna begins with the tongue. Because the tongue is so strong, so powerful and uncontrollable. So we have to engage this tongue. And how do we engage the tongue? Taking Krishna Prasad, but also distributing Krishna Prasad. Giving Krishna Prasad and putting Krishna Prasad on the tongue of others, not just thinking of our own tongue. That's warned. Prabhupada warns about this in the Upadeshamrita. One carries over this selfish attitude to prasadam, then one will still be a victim of the tongue. See, thinking, oh, the prasadam, I should take it all. Well, he's come looking for the mahaplate to distribute, and it's gone because we have run off with it. Eating everything like Kumbhakarna. So accepting prasadam, but also distributing prasadam. And that's the one side, the tasting function, and the other side is to speak, to chant. This is the other function of the tongue. So to glorify Krishna. So in this way, the mission of Lord Chaitanya begins with engaging the tongue in Krishna's service. And just as when one is a demon, whether big or little, but when one is a demon, one views the whole world as the object of his sense gratification. So the devotee, he views the whole world as the object of Lord Chaitanya's mission, of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. And very eagerly he wants to go anywhere and everywhere and distribute Lord Chaitanya's mercy. Just like demons are eager to go. Big demons of the past, they were eager to fly through the universe. It's like those demons who had those 3 cities, city of silver, gold, and iron, the Tripura. They were flying through the whole universe. They would approach different planets and drop bombs on the planets, attack them, conquer them, enjoy and control them. So demons are very eager for that business, but then they have to, of course, suffer the reaction. So they're demoniac, lower species of life, which one is forced into when one is creating havoc in this universe. And I was just thinking of when I was talking about this tasting. There is this undersea creature. We call it the squid, it has these long tentacles. You know? Cuttlefish, it has different names. It makes the black ink, and sometimes they get very, very huge. So these tentacles, these arms that come out, they're actually the lips of this creature. They come out from around its mouth. You see? So it's this creature's lips. Some of these, they're huge, they get huge. As they've estimated, because they catch these whales, and the whales have the markers of the suckers of these arms of these creatures. And they've calculated, seeing the size of these suckers, measuring them, that some of these creatures are longer than 100 meters in the sea. They've not seen them so big, but they've calculated that they grow so big. So just imagine the consciousness of such a creature. It lays in the ocean, and its lips, its mouth is extending out in all directions, feeling for things to grab and eat. This is its business. It's floating in the sea and extending its mouth parts everywhere. So this is the result of acting in the human form of life upon this karma bija, viewing the world as my apple to eat. Yes, so to get free of the bondage of material existence, which brings us down to such a horrible situation, one has to view this world in another way, as the place of Lord Krishna's pastime, or Lord Chaitanya's pastime of mercy. And all these fallen souls should be blessed by this mercy. And thus the devotee very eagerly engages himself in distributing that mercy. So, any questions? Yes?
I heard Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not appear in every Kali Yuga, and he is not appear. What is the process in this Kali Yuga? The same? This Nama Sankirtan?
Well, there are 4 yugas, and in 4 yugas there are the yuga avatars. So, but in one set of 4 yugas, in a day of Brahma, once in a day of Brahma, in each day of Brahma there are 1,000 cycles of 4 yugas. They're called Chatur Yuga or Divya Yuga. So there are 1,000 of these. So in one Kali Yuga, or let us say first of all in one Dwarpa Yuga, in an age, in a day of Brahma, Lord Krishna himself appears. The original personality of God appears as the Dwarpa Yuga avatar. That doesn't mean that in the other Dwarpa Yugas, the other 999 Dwarpa Yugas, that there is no Yuga avatar. There is, but he is not the original personality of God, Krishna. And in the Kali Yuga that follows that particular Dwarpa Yuga, then Lord Krishna himself appears again as the Kali Yuga avatar, Lord Gauranga. That doesn't mean in the other Kali Yugas that there is no avatar who teaches Nam Sankirtan. But in this particular Kali Yuga, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Mahiyana, Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya is none other than Radha and Krishna. In the other yugas, the avatar is an expansion of the Lord, who teaches Nam Sankirtan to liberate the conditioned souls. But he does not give pure love of God. So that is unique to this particular Kali Yuga. Not only are we delivered by chanting the holy name, but one receives the greatest benediction of Krishna Prema. Any other questions? Yes?
You have to explain out of body experience that people are not, when they're dying in the hospital, their heart stops and they say that they go to a tunnel, to the light, and need some light beings and they're passing through their lives in a very loving circumstances. Can you explain that?
Yes, these experiences are actually defined in Vedanta Sutra commentary called Govinda Vasya Baladev Vijayabhusha. It's described that when the soul leaves the body at the time of death, it passes through a channel which is called Nadi. And there are 118 of them which emanate. These are subtle channels which radiate from the seat of the soul in the heart. So according to one's karma, one of these nadis is illuminated by the super soul. So these persons who've had these NDE experiences, near-death experiences, they have found themselves first in darkness, then they see that there is a light which is shining at the end of the tunnel, and they follow that light. So that illumination is the super soul. And he leads them through a particular nadi according to their karma. And they're conducted out of that nadi and to their next destination by what is called Amanava Purush. Amanava Purush means non-human person, or superhuman person. And the first of the Amanava Purushas, because depending on, especially if one is going upward, if by one's karma one will be promoted to higher and higher, a higher level, then there are many levels in between, and there are many of these. You could call them guardian angels, or guiding angels, which take the soul higher and higher. So the first one is called the Archisteva, the first one. And then he meets, and this is, at least if they have some material piety. Our forefathers go to this Pitri-loka. So if one is adhering to some religious principles, is good, is a moral person, then he may go to Pitri-loka. So he is conducted there by the Pitris themselves, by the forefathers who come to take him. But then these persons are told, at some point on the journey, they're told, you're not meant to leave your body now, you must go back. So they just go out, they see something, and come back. So they're able to see that because of some punya, some good karma. Others, they see the opposite. Others have reported, not so many, it is said. I was just reading some scientific investigator who was researching these experiences. So he found that some people have actually seen entities like the Yamadutas, but not so many. And he was supposing that perhaps that experience is so horrible that people tend to forget it. They tend to not remember it. But some people have. Anyway, as I was saying the other night, that for a person to actually change his life, simply remembering or experiencing something directly. Although people say they're very interested and they say this will give us the proof, the means by which we can believe that there is a next life and that there is a God or higher authorities in this universe. They may say like that, but actually we see practically that when they experience such things, it doesn't really mean that they change their life. The change comes about from understanding, from hearing from an authority, and actually understanding from him what is the real purpose of our existence. Just to experience something mystical, something in the world beyond, is not enough. That's been shown, because all these people who have these experiences, well, sometimes they become a little more serious, it seems, a little more sober. But they're not really inquiring into the fundamental meaning of existence. Why am I here? They're not really seeking answers. They're not, actually they're thinking that it's wonderful, that when I die I'll go to a better place. And they're not really thinking what will happen next after that. Where Krishna says, Punarvartinorjuna, wherever you go in this universe, it is a place of birth and death. You won't stay there either. But they're just content to think, when I die, mother and father or grandmother, grandfather, they will come and take me. I saw them. It was very nice. They will take me up the crystal staircase to the heavenly door I could see. And there I will be very happy. And that's enough for them. So one has to hear from a realized soul, and then one's life will actually change from material to spiritual. Otherwise, one's just following the ways of karma, whether up or down. Yes?
You spoke about Kumbhakarna, that he was making some austerity and penances, and I heard that actually in order to come to Krishna consciousness, we were doing all this austerity and penances in past lifetime. So what is it actually? What is the difference? What does it mean, this austerity thing?
Yeah, well, there, like as explained in Bhagavad Gita, there are demoniac austerities. Austerities which torture the body, give pain to the body. And the goal of these austerities is simply power, prestige, the ability to cause trouble to others. It's like that Vrikasura, he was cutting his flesh and offering it into the fire to please Lord Shiva. And when Lord Shiva appeared and asked him, "What do you want? Why are you doing this horrible thing?" He said, "I want power that whoever's head I touch will crack into 1,000 pieces." So that's a demon. Or to give a modern example, the demons today, they perform austerities to advance themselves in the estimation of others, to become famous. Scientists, they perform arduous experiments in the laboratory, you see, which are very, very difficult. They do things that ordinary people would not do. Just this concentrated, repetitive work, doing a test again and again and again, and writing down the results, working in a microscope again and for hours and hours on end each day. This is very arduous. Why are they doing it? Because they want to become powerful. Or politicians, traveling here and there, shaking hands, making speeches, campaigning. It's also a very great austerity. Why do they do it? Because they want to become powerful. Or also ladies too. They, especially those who want to win beauty contests, they diet. They go without eating to be very thin in the waist. Do exercises and all kinds of things, and practice looking beautiful. And why do they do this? This is austerity. Also to become famous and celebrated. So it's not austerity. It's not just austerity, but it is the type of austerity that counts. So actually, everyone in this human form of life is engaged in austerity. That's unavoidable.